Hi, everyone. This is Pam Torrey from Ingaged, and you're listening to the Ingaged Podcast. We know that sales and team culture go hand in hand, and building a culture of accountability can be the difference between average and outstanding results. On today's episode, we're joined by John Hicks from Dave Yoho Associates, an account executive who's helped teams transform performance through accountability-driven leadership. We'll explore what it really means to lead by example, how to make accountability feel empowering rather than punitive, and why it all circles back to a stronger team culture. And stay tuned, because near the end, John will share a bit about the upcoming Growth Mastery Summit this October. John, welcome to the show. It's been a while since we've had you on one of our Engaged content platforms.
Well, thank you, Pam. Glad to be back. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. So this whole summer, we have been talking about kind of getting back to basics. That has been our theme. It's, I think, a topic that's pretty hot in the industry. And we've spent a lot of time talking about like the basics of the sales process and the basics of different elements of, the sales and marketing tech stack and those sorts of things. But we haven't talked about culture, which feels like a big miss. And so I'm glad to have you on so we can actually address this big issue.
Certainly glad to be here.
Well, to kick things off, could you share a bit about your background? What led you to the home improvement industry and then eventually your role at Dave Yoho Associates?
Sure, Pam. I've got over 30 years experience in training and development. And 20 of those years, I've had experience in in-home sales and leadership. I really specialize in business development, and that's maximizing the profitability for home improvement companies across the country. But my true passion is helping others achieve their personal, professional, and financial goals. So about 4 years ago, I joined Dave Yoho Associates, and I had the opportunity to really follow my passion, and that was literally helping people on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave Yoho Associates has like such a storied history in this industry as well. They're a really trusted voice. And so I feel like if you're trying to help people to really achieve their goals, like it's a great place to be because they have this legacy of that level of achievement.
Certainly working for the best.
So I want to dig into this topic of accountability culture because I feel like accountability is a buzzword. Everybody talks about it. Everybody wants to say that they have a culture of accountability, but I don't think that most people could define that if you ask them. So when we talk about a culture of accountability, what does that actually look like in a home remodeling sales organization beyond just tracking KPIs?
That's a great question. In the home improvement sales organization, a culture of accountability, it goes far beyond hitting revenue targets. Mm-hmm. It's about each team member making decisions, taking ownership, and not only for sales results, but also for their actions. I think it includes client interactions, the overall customer experience. It means this. Reps proactively solve problems, openly communicate, and consistently uphold quality standards. In this part, I like to say, even when no one's watching, it eliminates my least favorite phrase in the world is "it's not my job." That's not my job. But accountability eliminates the "it's not my job" mentality, and it replaces with collective responsibility for delivering quality work and exceeding homeowner expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that something we don't think about enough from the perspective of, our KPIs is truly that like customer satisfaction number. We talk all the time about closing deals, hitting metrics, and like you can close deals with like moderately satisfied customers, but wouldn't you prefer to have very satisfied customers who are going to end up coming back in the future or referring people? Like there are some of these intangibles that if you're not tracking them, if you're not paying attention to those things, like you aren't holding your team accountable.
So true, so true. And leads cost more today than they've ever cost since, I think in the 30 years I've been doing this. And when we look at the average cost around the country, to get a sales rep or a designer or consultant to the table in front of a customer, and on average across the country is costing over $700 today.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So when we can talk about those types of things where we can get more referrals and repeat business, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. So when we want to set up this culture of accountability, what are the first steps a leader needs to take to start that shift towards accountability? Is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it a mix? And more importantly, like, how do you get buy-in from the team? How do you get the team to come with you on this journey?
Well, I think it is a mixture, but shifting towards accountability, it really starts with leadership modeling accountability. Leaders must own their mistakes. I think we have to, in 2025, be transparent with our goals. We have to act as mentors, not just a supervisor or a manager. The shift is both top down, as I mentioned, and bottom up. And when we kind of drill into those separately, when leaders can set clear expectations, demonstrate accountability firsthand, and foster a positive, non-toxic culture. That's a mouthful, a positive, non-toxic culture. But then from the bottom up, team members are encouraged to hold each other accountable. And when they can share feedback and celebrate successes collectively, creating this type of culture, it involves regular communication. And often that's missing from office to office. The reason it matters and how it benefits everyone, plus involving everyone in the goal setting and process improvement.
I was talking to one of my teammates before this about, how do we make it okay for somebody to say that they don't know something? If I don't know how to do something, that's okay. It's okay that I need help, that I need feedback, that I need somebody to like coach me on this process. I think that's part of creating a culture of accountability as well, is that you're making it okay to ask for help and making it okay to look for additional resources.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, I think across the country, because we've created this environment where we've almost created the revolving door. Many offices bring people in, they give them a week or two of training, we cut them loose with no support mechanism and push them out into the field. And then all of a sudden we're sitting around weeks later wondering why they've either resigned or we're sitting around complaining because they're not performing.
Yeah. And if you don't provide them with the resources, how can you, my boss, Dean Curtis, our CEO, says this all the time: if I don't train on it, I can't hold somebody accountable to it. If I don't train, it's not going to work.
You guys offer so many cool metrics, and being able to look at within the Ingaged platform, to be able to look at the usage. And as we travel, so many times we hear all those excuses like, I didn't have time to do that. And, we're not even sometimes using the tools that are provided for us.
Yeah, it's really helping people to feel like they have resources, but also that, I as a leader am holding myself accountable. We as an organization are all in this together. We are all rowing in the same direction. So
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about how you frame accountability, because, I think from our perspective, we see it as a good thing. Having things to strive for, understanding what you're responsible for, like that feels good to me, to know what I'm supposed to be doing. But I think that in some organizations where maybe they haven't had the best culture up until now, maybe they have a new leader coming in who's trying to change that culture, accountability can kind of be a 4-letter word. So how do you help sales reps to see accountability as empowering rather than punitive?
And it's such a great topic, but to help them see accountability as empowering, it starts with the framing accountability as a path to professional growth and autonomy, not punishment. And we've got to recognize and reward ownership. And as you mentioned a few minutes ago, Pam, learning from our mistakes. Because, I think after that, it's providing the tools and coaching and the support that need to be successful. I was having a conversation just this week and, with a colleague, and, I said, when people fail, if we're working with an office that is not succeeding, what are they doing about it? And so many times we're not doing that piece to help you become successful, but really making sure that we're taking accountability, trust, and resources, just pairing it all together. And really, as I mentioned, that's often what's missing. I work with companies, sometimes great companies, but when you take this out of as an element, people are sometimes scratching their heads why we're not successful.
Yeah, I think something you mentioned is celebrating wins. And I think what we often don't do necessarily is celebrate improvement. We just we'll just celebrate the wins as they are, oh, this person's hitting benchmarks. Like, that's great. But what about the person who increased their close rate by 10%? Like, maybe they aren't quite hitting benchmark yet, but like, that's massive.
Sure.
To have increased. And so I think that's a really good nugget to call out, is celebrating those wins, however they might look.
And I think when we can combine that with personal and career development and their personal goals, it takes the salespeople to another level and allows them to have pride and want to continuously improve.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about actually measuring these metrics, because I think a lot of our contractors out there understand how to measure like the basics. They understand how to measure the number of leads issued, the number of, appointments sat, the number of closed won appointments. Like, they know those things. But what are some of the other like most meaningful accountability metrics in home improvement sales, like outside of the basics? Are there any like soft metrics? And then how do you avoid drowning your team in data? I think a lot of people have a bit of overwhelm today with some of the data that's available. There's just too much out there.
Another great question. Let's look at some of those hard metrics first, because there are teams that I go visit that if I said, how many appointments did you have yesterday? What's your close rate? Or where are we at today? That really can't even answer that. But I think at a baseline, we have to have that data. We need to know our numbers. As I mentioned, the cost of a lead today, I go to some offices, they're losing money. If I'm paying $700 to send a representative out and their close rate is at 15 or 20%, we're swimming backwards. Certainly another hard metric would be NSLI, or net sales to leads issued. But we then need to look at things like customer satisfaction ratings. How many reviews are they getting? Because that does fuel the engine. Pricing accuracy. How many times are we pricing a job correctly? And then we just finished talking about some of the number of referrals that we're getting on a regular basis. How many self-generated? That's almost a word that's fallen off the map nowadays. How many self-generated sales are each sales representative doing? But then we have this mix where these soft metrics, as you alluded to a moment ago, that's measuring things like customer happiness, teamwork, quality, skill development, and they're all for culture building, and really to avoid getting teams overwhelmed is really putting a mix of these together, prioritizing a handful of meaningful KPIs, because we have to keep an eye on those as well, because that's what, profitability is not a dirty word in our business. And we got to make sure we're making money along with some of the soft KPIs. We got to keep reporting simple. And we got to stay focused on attainable, actionable insights. We have to make sure we're doing that. And like I said, a lot of times we go into offices where, they don't have a sales board. They don't know. The team doesn't even know how they're performing until it's too late. They're the bottom of the ninth and we're down by 30 runs and the game is over. But another recommendation is involve the reps in the metric selection. So they're invested on what's being measured, and as we grow, but getting them involved is another key step.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really liked what you said about some of these things that maybe wouldn't seem obvious, like how accurate are your estimates, how accurate is the pricing that you're putting together, making sure that you don't have reps going rogue and like over discounting or doing things that they shouldn't be doing that cut into profitability, because that loses a lot of money in the business. And it's something that you wouldn't necessarily be tracking from the jump. I don't think a lot of businesses are tracking that right away, but it's something they should really be paying attention to. And I feel like that's a really attainable fix with a team, is to just put the guardrails in around.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So we're putting these accountability measures in place. We are picking out the KPIs that we want to report on, trying to foster this culture. I want to know from you, from your experience in this industry, what happens to the broader team culture when accountability shifts from the just do it mentality, from a compliance mentality, to the team actually owning their KPIs, owning their development? How does that impact retention? How does it impact morale and overall team performance?
It's a beautiful thing. When accountability shifts from compliance to ownership, what we see is team members become more engaged and motivated.
Mm-hmm.
We see more trust and transparency. Those types of things increase with the team. And then retention rates. Man, look at how much time we're spending on training and getting someone up to speed. And then we send them out with these leads that can be north of $700. It's all about keeping the retention rates and looking for increasing morale. And as the employees feel valued and they feel responsible for the outcomes of the process, performance ramps up because people are solving problems proactively rather than waiting for direction. So it really is a great thing when we see this type of stuff happen.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about how hard it is to find candidates today. It's kind of the jungle out there trying to find good candidates, also trying to find people who are not just looking for a job, this job would be a good fit for them. I think that's the even harder thing. We've had Brad from Dave Yoho Associates on our webinars before to talk about DISC profiles and how do you actually go about assessing candidates? And it's so hard to find good salespeople who would thrive in that environment and who really love the job. I mean, I just think about what a loss it is when one of those people leaves because they don't feel supported. They don't feel like they have the resources to be able to do their job well. It's really just a loss to the business.
Absolutely. And a lot of times these people, this isn't their first sales job. They've come from a company that had a culture of accountability. And so many times they walk into your organization and it's kind of that dumpster fire, if you will, things going on that you go, wow, is this the place I want to hang my hat and can I be successful in this environment? So they move on and it costs us a lot of money.
Yeah. So I want to pick your brain a little bit just from your experience, both in the industry as well as working at Dave Yoho Associates. Do you have a specific story from your time in home improvement sales where accountability took a team from really struggling from that dumpster fire to thriving, to being a really successful sales organization?
I've got a lot of examples that kind of pop into my head as you asked that, but one client came to mind and they were all over the place, really just kind of getting established, but there were so many systems not in place. They implemented daily priorities and a clear system of accountability that empowered growth. And it's crazy, Pam, their sales almost tripled.
Wow.
And this was just the first step. And their staff increased, if not doubled. And really, this just happened within a couple years. These types of culture changes don't happen overnight, and especially the ones that today have that toxic culture. But when you put a team-based focused on the customer's priorities and transforming the team as a whole to being involved and customer satisfaction, great things can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that idea of daily priorities because it can be really overwhelming when you're looking at, the quarter or the year. That's a lot. It's a lot that when you see that large number, I think that's something I think about a lot. The big number can be really scary. How can you break that down into a daily number?
And so many times I go into offices and they're talking about the annual goal or what the organization's goals. And while I understand those things and those things are important, what does it mean to the person sitting in the chair, the sales representative? So really, I encourage achievable, attainable goals that maybe the goal for the month, not where do we want to be, because we lose sight sometimes, or these salespeople lose sight sometimes on how do I play a role in this? Or am I just going day in and day out, letting things kind of flow as they are, because I can't really control the outcome of the company for a year from now.
Yeah. And I think too, to a lot of our customers who are dealing with a lot of it kind of ambiguous situations. I mean, we have a lot of customers, you have a lot of customers who are in places that like maybe have a natural disaster or maybe have some kind of like exigent circumstances going on. And just looking at like annual numbers, I think can be really stressful in those times. But if you have instead like, okay, well, this month we are trying to do XYZ. Like this is our job this month. And it helps you to be able to respond as well to things that are outside of your control instead of
Sure.
just worrying about the annual number.
That is correct. That is correct. And you see more involvement. That's at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for is everybody participate towards a common goal.
So, John, before I let you go, you guys over at Dave Yoho Associates have a great event coming up in October. I know we've been to a lot of your events in the past. They are always an excellent educational opportunity. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk to our audience about the Growth Mastery Summit. Can you tell us, who should attend and what those attendees could expect?
Man, thank you, Pam. We're super excited this year about our upcoming Growth Mastery Summit. The dates for the event are October 28th through the 30th. We're going to be in Northern Virginia, outside of the Dulles Airport. And it'll be 3 days of growth, strategy, and connection. And that's really where people gain the most. We'll be covering other topics like sales training, leadership, and really even the implementing of technology.
Yeah.
And you asked the question, who's it intended for? Well, the summit is intended for owners and upper management. We do on occasion get some sales managers, but really is intended for leadership. The owners, anyone on the call can get additional information at www.hipsummit.com. That's HIPSUMMIT. In addition to that, Pam, I know there's probably people on the call today going, I need some help. I need some help in implementing this culture of accountability, and I'd love to have a conversation. I'd like to extend the offer for a 30-minute coaching session at no cost to the individual who may be sitting there struggling or wondering how to get out of this hole. And all you have to do is email me at Yo, and I actually have it on the screen today, the yohofree30@gmail.com, and we'll schedule some time.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the Dave Yoho Associates events. We've been to a lot of them. They are really wonderful events for business leaders. It's just a good time. You're going to learn. You're guaranteed to learn something. And like, what else could we want in this industry?
Absolutely.
Well, John, thank you so much for being here today. It was wonderful to have you on. I look forward to having you back at some future date to talk about, some other topics around your vast experience in the industry.
Pam, it was a true pleasure. And thank you again for having me on today.
Thanks for listening to the Ingaged Podcast. Be sure to visit engaged.io for more information on how to create, share, and measure your way to success. If you love the Ingaged Podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time.